long time. The first one is Mommy's because Mommy is the sickest. Or two, no. One more, Deli. Here's yours. Mommy. Mommy. Yours. Wait.
What? Thank you.
I forgot to toast it, Mom.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Mommy will eat it anyways. Thank you. Turn on the light, Wesley. Thank you, bud. Okay, sorry. I left my mic on again. Coming in live. Right at ya. My son is sweet. He made me jelly sandwich. Okay. I don't know. I got through a little bit of this. And I just don't even see how this lawsuit is allowed it in a way. So we'll watch it together. I probably have some pretty harsh opinions on it. But this girl is suing like 50 people. Basically anybody associated with Aerosmith and Steven Tyler, you're getting sued, okay? I don't know how this lawsuit is allowed. Because let's watch her story, okay? I fast forwarded to the video, to the part where we're going to go over the story now. Julia, the girl who is suing Steven Tyler and 49 other people, we're starting off with how the plaintiff, Julia's plaintiff, defendant John Doe 1 is, or defendant Doe 1 is Steven Tyler. He's the main defendant, and all 49 behind him are just a little bit extra. I don't know. So anyways, let's go through her story.
Steven Tyler. Upon information and belief, she had just turned 16 1 month earlier. So he was 20.
They gotta state that. And yes, she was 16 by 1 month, which basically is saying she barely has left the 15-year-old mentality.
25, she was 16. So Steven Tyler showed unusual interest in Julia.
Okay? She must have been really pretty and really hot.
Immediately. And after speaking with her backstage, Steven took Julia and another person to his hotel room. He then required the other individual to leave, so he was alone with Julia. Among other topics, Julia and Steven discussed how old Julia was, and Julia informed him of her age. Steven inquired where Julia's parents were and why she was out all night by herself. So
he takes her, another girl, to the hotel room. He then excuses the one girl. So you're telling me that Julia was okay. She didn't say, well, I would like to leave with her or anything. She didn't. But I don't know if I missed this. Maybe I need to rewind it back more. But Julia, how she met Steven Tyler because this is important. This lady, she's probably one of the defendants. This lady runs a special institute where young girls, 16-year-old girls, stuff like that, young little girls who are susceptible to rock stars. So basically, Julia and this other girl were presented to Steven Tyler, and he chose Julia. So she willingly went to meet Steven Tyler, knowing that it was possibly going to get sexual. It's not like all of a sudden she got a backstage pass and met Steven Tyler through a backstage pass and he, kidnapped her or something. She was presented to him.
He's asking, where's your parents? He's kind of feeling it out. Julia.
So, yeah, he's feeling it out right now. He's like, where's your parents? Why? He's not immediately just jumping on this 16-year-old.
Informed Steven of the struggles that she was facing at home. So he's, this is like one of those R. Kelly tactics where he would often go after victims who had struggles at home, and he would become like sort of a provider or an alternative home for them. Steven Tyler performed various acts of criminal bleep conduct on Julia that night. So she was 16, he's 25. Steven Tyler had plaintiffs stay with him in his hotel that night and then sent her home the next morning in a taxi cab. Before she left, Steven invited Julia to Seattle for his band's next concert. So she was in Portland and he invited her to Seattle. He said he would buy the plane ticket so she could travel separately from him since she was a minor and could not travel with him across state lines. So here they're kind of starting to establish a bit of a...
Okay, so this is where the story gets... Okay, he offers her a plane ticket and she takes it, knowing what had happened last night. She's now getting sent home in a cab, and he's like, I don't want no other girl in this next city. I want you. And because it's not unusual for these rock bands that are on drugs and crap, and Aerosmith isn't the only one. This lady runs a business for all, not just for Aerosmith, for all rock stars. They're called groupies. And these groupies, they're 16 years old sometimes because,
It's okay, it's a little hard today.
that's the kind of, just, especially when they come from a troubled home like her,
Mens rea, a mental requirement that Steven knew what he was doing wasn't correct, and he knew that he could get in trouble for it.
She also knew it wasn't correct. She also knew. At this moment in time, they both know that if they are seen together, it's gonna be bad.
Knew he was breaking the law. I think that's what they're trying to establish here. Julia used the plane ticket provided by Steven to fly to Seattle for the concert. Steven had Julia stay in his hotel room after the show that night, and again, he performed various bleep acts upon Julia. So Julia flew back to Portland the next day with a ticket provided by Steven.
So she wasn't forced on the plane. He didn't escort her on the plane. He put her in a cab and offered her a ticket. She said yes to the ticket. She got on the plane and she flew out there with nobody standing behind her, nobody forcing her. And this just gets kind of dumber in a way.
After the show in Seattle, they allege, Steven continued to pursue Julia by frequently phoning her at home, making various statements to her, inducing her to visit him again, including telling her that he wrote a song for her, that he recorded the song with his band, and he wished she could be in the recording studio so he could sing it to her. Once Julia finished her sophomore high school year, Steven caused her to travel to Boston to stay with him.
Once again, he asked her if she wanted to come to Boston. He bought her a plane ticket and she took it. Knowing what had happened in Seattle, knowing what had happened in Portland. So now she knows what's going to happen in Boston. But she goes.
A few weeks, Stephen had told Julia that he did not want her to go back to school and he wanted her to stay with him. He wanted to continue taking her on the road to the concerts with him and his band, and he promised to provide for her as she traveled with him. During this time, he continued to bleep assault Julia. Julia, still a minor at this time, was powerless to resist Stephen's power, fame, and substantial financial ability. Stephen coerced and persuaded Julia into believing that this was a romantic love affair. So that's how they met. So then...
Well, okay, I haven't seen past this part. So all this is total new reaction coming down. So... I'm guessing this broke up wrong, because she believed it was a romantic love affair. That's why she willingly took the tickets and went to Seattle and Boston and everywhere he wanted her to go, because she believed that Steven Tyler was literally in love with her. So this is like one of those girls that change their minds afterwards. Does it feel like that? Because that statement right there, the way I read it, is she believed, but I'm guessing later on there's going to be a bad breakup. And now, well, she was 16 then. She's 40 now. California put in a new law allowing you, as long as you were a minor, not an adult, but a minor, and so he extended the statute. So that's how this can happen, because like in Utah, we have like an 8-year statute on this.
And the complaint goes on into how Stephen becomes Julia's guardian and continues to assault her. It's another example of a guardian using their position of power and violating their fiduciary duty. Now, again, this is all alleged. This is all innocent until proven guilty. But what I will say is he did publish a book in 2011 where he bold-faced admitted to some of this stuff.
And I read that book when I did a report on Aerosmith in high school. It was a crazy book. There's some dirty stuff that won't get out of my head from that book.
I don't know if I should do like a BJ audio book club where I just read the Steven Tyler book. I don't know. Maybe I will. It might be a little exhausting, but I'm kind of scared to read it by myself. So now they just talked about how they met, and now we're going to talk about how he became her guardian, her legal guardian. In approximately 1970.
I mean, okay. So she willingly allows him to be her guardian and takes off with him. Sounds like a total groupie to me. Like, she knew what she was getting into. She knows what's going to happen if she says yes to him being her guardian. I mean, you're trying to talk about, well, Steven Tyler knew this was all wrong and now he's her guardian, and it shows that a guardian was doing this to... Because a guardian basically makes you a parent in a way. So now it's like, okay, he went from his fame and money and stature to guardian abuse.
24, so remember
But nobody's looking at her thinking. We're going over Steven Tyler's thinking, but what about her thinking? Why did she take those plane tickets? Nobody escorted her. He didn't have bodyguards go to her house and escort her to the plane. And he asked her if she wanted a ticket. She didn't say no. She didn't say, I'll think about it.
Met in 1973. Stephen and his agents took actions for Stephen to become the guardian for Julia, so he could more easily travel with Julia and avoid criminal prosecution. Stephen met with Julia's mother and convinced her to sign over the guardianship of her daughter to him. He made
Wow.
various promises and inducements to the mother, assuring her of the well-being of Julia, including that he promised Julia's mother he would enroll her in school, he would support her and provide her with better medical care and support than her mother could at the time. He did not meaningfully follow through on those promises, and instead he just continued to travel with her, assault her, and provide alcohol and drugs to her.
Did she think that anything was going to be different than the other 3 times in the other cities? She knows why he's going for guardianship. He lied. Yeah, he lied to the mother, okay? He lied to the mother. That's bad. That's really bad of him. But why she even bring Steven Tyler home to talk to the mother?
Now, something that some people have been saying on my Instagram comments is like, well, this is really the parents' fault. This is the mother's fault. Where was the mom? Where was the dad? They should have never signed her over. True.
Exactly.
But it's not just one person's fault. And I think that's indicative from the fact that Julia isn't just naming Steven Tyler in this complaint. She's naming 50 defendants. A whole team of people had to come together and be complacent with this in order for it to happen, including Julia's mother. Now, the way that they kind of wrote this complaint here, they're kind of trying to act like, oh, well, he made promises and he didn't keep the promises and stuff like that. And it's like, the mom signed over the guardianship and she shouldn't have done that. But she did. And so let's get into the next part of what happened after that. And again, if this type of content right here, where the cursor is right now, will make you upset, I again encourage you to leave and excuse yourself from the video. Okay, so the next part we're talking about here is...
So there's a warning about... I wonder if I should fast forward. I don't know if I really want to talk about this.
Julia.
But if you don't want to talk about it, I mean, yeah, fast forward the video a little bit. I kind of want to get the full story, so I'm going to go through it to get the full story. But,
Julia gets pregnant, and then she is coerced to go ahead and terminate it. So, approximately 1975, so this is like 2 years after they meet, Julia became pregnant as a result of these bleep acts.
Well, now she's an adult, right? It's 2 years later. She's an adult now. He doesn't have guardianship over her. Legally, she's free.
By Steven Tyler, causing him to be simultaneously both the father of plaintiff's unborn child and her legal guardian. Okay, this is not good. This is not supposed to
Well, she must be just before 18 then.
Steven was the sole source of income, transportation, and support for Julia. And when Julia told Steven that she was pregnant, he instructed her that she could not seek any prenatal medical care because he would get in trouble. Again, more mens rea, showing that he had the requisite mental capacity to know that what he was doing was against the law. So he's saying he would get in trouble for being the father of the unborn child when people started asking who the father was at the doctor. So he said, no, I'm not bringing you to the doctor. I'm not bringing you to get no.
You don't have to say who the father is. You can, it's bad, once again, to say lie. Or you could just simply say, I don't want to name the father.
Not a medical care because I'm going to get in trouble.
And then, but okay, pregnancy is 9 months. So if this is 2 years after they met, she's probably she's probably just under 18. So 9 months later, she's going to be 18. And so when she's 18, nobody's going to do the math, okay? Nobody's going to do the math.
When people start asking who's dad, Julia continued to follow his instructions and commands, and he continued to woo her and exert undue influence over her by, among other things, informing her that he's writing these songs about her and recording songs about her, referring to her and inspired by her. Okay, so then approximately in the fall of 1975, when Julia was pregnant, Steven was touring with his band and left Julia alone at home in the Massachusetts apartment. He left her with not a lot of food, not a lot of money, and she did not have a car. She didn't have a car, so she was basically stuck in this apartment in Massachusetts while Steven was out on tour with Aerosmith. While she was there, a fire occurred in the apartment, and she lost consciousness from inhaling smoke.
Okay.
She regained
How is that Steven's fault?
in a Catholic hospital with Stephen by her bedside. Medical staff informed them that Julia would make a full recovery and that the baby was not harmed. But Stephen still pressured her and coerced her into terminating by threatening that he would send her back to her family and cease to support and love her if she did not.
Okay, so here we go. She wants to be with Stephen because she can have the baby if she goes home to her parents. He straight up tells her, do I need to give you a plane ticket home, or do you want to be with me? He's given her a choice. She can go back to Portland and not name the father. And just, I know, like my sister-in-law said, she didn't exactly know who the father was, and she didn't name the father. When I was 17, I had a baby. They told me not to put the father's name down because if I put the father's name down, I can't change it later. Like, because I was 17 and young when I had this, and we were young and stupid, I didn't have to list a father. So yeah, the nurse tried to talk me into, please don't list the father. And I was like, no, the father's here. He's supporting me and the kid, or so I thought. And I put the father on the birth certificate because you don't have to put the father on the birth certificate. There's plenty of people in this world who don't do it.
Terminate. Agents of Stephen were present, and they actually assisted with the arrangement for the termination, which needed to be performed at a different facility because the facility she was at was a Catholic hospital, and they don't be doing that kind of thing over there. Julia relented, she gave in, and the termination was performed. So the next part of the story, there's not one part that's worse than the others, but like, imagine, like, you go through all that, and then years and years later, it's brought back up in this way. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
Well, she's bringing it back up. It could have stayed closed and secret. I wonder why she's bringing it back up like 22 odd years later. 22, 23 years later. So I said I feel like this is maybe the next her Depp thing because that got so televised and when you sue somebody big like Johnny Depp or Steven Tyler, I mean, a band, Aerosmith, that has been around since the 60s, and they're still making music today because they're still that cool. And Steven wasn't shy about it in his book when he wrote his book. He was infatuated with her, and the story's in the book. I should have rewinded that part where she reads this section of the book.
Julia made a conscious decision to leave and escape the music and drug-addled world, seeking to be free from the sexist culture created by Steven Tyler and the industry.
Okay.
Now y'all remember, this is a Lou Taylor client, and Lou Taylor likes to act like she's Miss Christian of the Year award over here, Miss Christian Lou Taylor. And this is the type of clients that she's representing. So again, it's not a secret that this is how Steven Tyler was acting. It's not a secret that this is almost the brand of the band. Like, people know this. It's almost common knowledge as far as a whole age group of people. So Miss Christian Lou Taylor, this is her type of clients, and this is the company she likes to keep, apparently. So it says, Julia returned back to her home in Portland over the years, and she rebuilt her life. She got her GED because, remember, she dropped out of high school to be with Steven. She attended college, and she became active in her Christian faith. She met her husband, she got married, she started a family, and she started to repair her soul through faith and family. Julia became deeply devoted to the Catholic faith, which celebrated the sanctity of life as she sought comfort, counseling, and solace with her priest. So basically, Julia becomes a Catholic, kind of like a deeply devoted Catholic. And if you know about Catholicism, maybe you don't, they're very anti, terminating pregnancies in this way. And it looks like she...
Okay, I can see why she's upset at the abortion. She should have left when he offered her a plane ticket home or abort the baby. This is the problem with people on drugs and stuff, is they're afraid to leave that life. it's scary to leave that life because this is all you know at the moment. And it's like, oh, if I go home, my parents are horrible, and it's like, but she ended up in this Catholic hospital that talked her into, you can do this. So religion, and this often happens with people on drugs. They trade the drugs for God or Jesus or both or whatever you believe. And then that's where the guilt and shame comes in. And now she's keeping this in the back of her mind, even though she's happy now and everything. I mean, I can understand why, okay, the abortion might stay. Like, she has to be like, yeah, I've had an abortion. Okay, I can see why that would stay with her. And she'd be mad about that. I mean, that's what maybe this lawsuit should be about, is that portion. But the rest of what went on was her choice. She took the plane tickets. She invited Stephen over to talk to the mom. She took off with him. She dropped out of school and she took off with him. But she met Stephen. It's like, let's rewind the story. She met Stephen through the agency she was at to purposely meet these guys.
He went ahead and fell in line with those beliefs. And that's fine. I agree that everybody has the right to their...
And maybe, and she's blaming her mental illness on Stephen, which I don't think she should do that, because I think she had that, the low self-esteem, and when Stephen was infatuated with her and not the other girl and chose her, I think that boosted her self-esteem and ego, because she's like, okay, he chose me over that chick. I bet they're all pretty hot. They don't take in ugly girls to meet rock stars. And that's got to feel really, really good. So her mental capacity is due to the way she was raised, her parents, and everything. And she even told Stephen that, which when he told Stephen that first night, that tells him, okay, she's damaged goods. That's good because... I look, my kind of life is what they dream of living, and I'm going to give her that. Because she's, he might have took advantage of her mental, that this lawsuit should be rewritten that he took advantage of her mental illness that was caused by her parents. And the abortion, because she didn't want it, well, according to her words, she didn't want it, but Stephen gave her an out and she didn't take it. She took it out later.
Opinions on these types of issues, especially whenever it's somebody who's actually been affected by the issue, so we don't all gotta agree. But it basically says, now she would never do such a thing, and she maybe is ashamed of it. As a result of this abuse, she kept her private shame in silence and secrecy. So she was ashamed of what she did, and she changed her mind on that and stuff, which people are allowed to do if they want.
The difference between guilt and shame is guilt says that you're bad or you did something wrong, and shame says I am bad. I did something wrong. So guilt is external. You're blaming everything else. Shame is internal and harder to deal with because you're like, I can't believe I did all that stuff in my youth. I was so stupid. And you put the shame on you. And so I hope you guys understand why they worded shame, but because they should have worded more like guilt, because they put shame, which means she's internally struggling with she's bad. She was bad. Sometimes that happens in your childhood. You make decisions that seem like a quick fix at the moment. She was gonna go live a rock star's life instead of the poor, horrible life she was living. And that's how Stephen even got her. He says, look, I got all this money. I'm going to take care of your daughter. buy her whatever she wants. Put her in sweet hotels.
And she went about her life. You know, she got married, she had kids, she was Catholic, she was doing all that stuff. Look at the next paragraph.
I don't even know why the fire was in there. It's not Stephen's fault the fire was set. I don't get why the fire was in there. But maybe to tell the backstory why she ended up in the Catholic hospital, I guess.
That life was shattered when Stephen made widespread publications and statements for profit. The callous behavior by Stephen Tyler included publishing his memoirs and books, describing his abuse.
Like he said, Stephen's never been quiet about it. Stephen has never acted like the innocent, good rock star. Those books were written years ago. I read that book when I was like 19. It was a long time ago. And she's just coming out with this now.
Of Julia without her knowledge. She didn't know what was coming out, and without her consent. The memoirs characterize the child bleep assault of Julia as a romantic, loving relationship, but she didn't know this book was coming out. He made statements in the book with the intent of garnering various benefits, including fame.
But the thing is, he didn't name her in the book. He just calls her a 16-year-old. He doesn't name her. So nobody knows. Nobody's like, oh, let's go find this Julia girl. And harass her. Nobody harassed her for what was written in this book because he left her name out of it. So he's legally allowed to write a story if he leaves the name out. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if he had named her, I could see why. But how does she know that 16-year-old was her? Could have been another... Because Stephen never names the people.
Fame and financial benefit for himself, his managers, agents, publishers, without the consent or permission of plaintiff, and to her detriment. So again, I'm wondering, in 2011 or whatever, when this book came out, was Lou Taylor one of the managers, agents, or publishers? Because if she was, she's literally profiting off of a book of a man doing this type of stuff. And like, she's one of the most powerful agents in Hollywood. As a result of Stephen's statements and writings, Stephen imposed involuntary infamy upon Julia. She suffered and continues to suffer deep emotional harm as a result. This involuntary infamy and public dissemination of her assaults has aggravated and exacerbated the harm caused by the assaults and continues to prevent healing of the trauma. And it has...
The thing is she never had to take the plane tickets. So I don't know, can somebody explain to me why she took the plane tickets? Because if she didn't like what was going on, she could have changed her phone number and not take the plane tickets, and I bet Stephen would have gave up after a while. But, you know, I don't think he's just going to show up at her door and kidnap her. You know, Stephen will just get another girl presented to him. But, so I don't get this. I mean, like I said, she didn't have to get on the plane. Nobody escorted her to the plane. Nobody made sure she got on the plane. Stephen just gave her the tickets, and she took them.
Created additional trauma. His memoirs and statements confirm and confess.
Like I said, it ended badly. It ended with a forced abortion, which made her realize her drug world was bad, which made her realize that Stephen was bad. And that's where the shame comes in from the abortion. And now she's just saying that she was forced to do all this. She wasn't forced to get on the plane.
Oh my god!
Best.
And let's go back and reiterate. How'd she meet Stephen? She knew what she was doing. She knew she was going to be presented to Stephen They purposely got girls and dressed them up sexy, and girls that would be susceptible to pleasing these rock stars.
The crimes he perpetrated upon plaintiff, including... Ugh, this is gross. I'm going to read it, but... buckle. This is what Stephen said about Juliet.
Okay, yeah, she read this book earlier, but here it is. It's just a small paragraph, too.
In his memoir, according to this lawsuit, she was 16. She knew how to nasty.
So in a way, we're now getting Stephen's side of the story. So what's the first thing he says, or the second thing he says about her? She knew how to. He didn't force her. She knew. She just knew. She probably was taught it by the lady that ran the club.
With my bad self being 26 and she barely old enough to drive and sexy as hell, I just fell madly in love with her. She was my heart's desire, my partner in crimes of passion. Look, this is very interesting that I don't mean to laugh at it to make light of it, it's just very uncomfortable. He said,
well, it is funny, partner in crimes of passion, but she wants to get that word crime in there. Crimes of passion is just another way to say, she wasn't forced. Partner in crimes of passion. So he says she knew how to, that she was a partner in crime of passion. So this is Stephen's side of the story. She willingly did all this. Hey, Colin's not going to be able to have his birthday party with me sick tomorrow, so we hung up his decorations today. In my office instead of downstairs. We're gonna have to tell people, no, we're sorry. I know. You know what? We'll throw you a birthday party the week after. I don't know why I'm so sick lately, why I've been having these low-grade fevers and now this high-grade fever. I went to the doctor and they didn't really say anything. Okay, please, you're gonna bend his arms and stuff. I gotta continue this.
I was so in love, I almost took a teen bride.
Sorry.
I went and slept at her parents' house for a couple nights, and her parents fell in love with me. Signed a paper over.
See, okay. So, the parents were in love with Steven Tyler. They thought he was great. So, that's how he talked him into, well, let me be her guardian.
For me to have custody so I wouldn't get arrested if I took her out of state. I took her on tour with me. So this is from the book. Let me look something up. Steven Tyler. Let me see.
His little paragraph right there just totally decimates. He's got one small paragraph in a book and it decimates everything she just said. I mean, she knew how to please. She was his partner. She let him stay at her house for a couple of nights. Was excited for him to take guardianship. She left with him. It's all up until, like I said, the abortion. I understand why she's mad at the abortion. But Stephen did give her a chance to go back, stay pregnant and go back. But like I said, the drug life, well, it can get too intoxicating. So, it took her a minute to say, hey, all this is horribly bad, okay? It took her a minute to say it. And like I said, now she's got all this shame, and because she's got all this shame, which says she's bad, she wants to be like, well, why doesn't Stephen have this shame? Why is he writing in the book how much he loved me? Where's his shame? So this lawsuit is her punishing Stephen for not having shame.
See when the book was published. So the book was published,
but he didn't have shame. He knew he was doing wrong, but he didn't have shame because she willingly was his partner. So,
January 3rd, 2012.
He honest to God loved her.
Let me see what Steven Tyler was in 2012. So I just typed in Steven Tyler 2012. I don't know if all these pictures are actually from 2012, but at the time that Steven Tyler wrote this book, he was 64 years old. Okay, 64 years old when the book came out in 2012. He was 63. So this is kind of like a whole nother issue for me, is that when the book was published, Steven was in his 60s. He was in his 60s. So when this abuse allegedly occurred, he was in his 20s, which I still am like, he knew he could get in trouble. Even if it wasn't a moral or ethical issue, he knew it was a legal problem. And for me, it was a moral and ethical issue, not only because of the age difference, but because the age difference was compounded by how powerful, famous, popular, and all of that Steven was at the time.
Yeah, okay, she's living this crappy life. She's depressed, she's got mental illness. Who wouldn't take off with a rock star when you have low self-esteem? Who wouldn't take off with a rock star? A rock star.
Top of the fact that he knew that Julia didn't have a very strong home life and all of that. Steven Tyler was 60, 63, 64 years old when he wrote these words. She was 16 and she knew how to nasty. With my bad self being 26 and she barely old enough to drive and sexy as hell, I just fell madly in love with her. Like, he's still in his 60s talking about a 16-year-old like this.
Like I said, she's mad because Steven has no shame. That paragraph shows you that Steven has no shame over what happened. None at all. And she's like, I was 16. You should have shame.
I find it to be grotesque. So he gets into taking her on tour with him. Now let's move on to the next paragraph. By including Julia's name in the book's acknowledgments, he put it in the public without any doubt as to Julia's identity.
I didn't read the credits of the book. Who reads the credits of the book? Raise your hand if you read the credits of the book. Not me. I don't usually read the credits of a book. I might skim over them, like if I've read the book once or twice and I'm just bored and looking at the book. But I wouldn't sit there and be like, oh, this Julia chick, I wonder who she is in the book. Nobody's going to pinpoint that she was the 16-year-old because he doesn't state it in the credits. He just states her name.
Soon after, Julia was in line at a grocery store and saw a picture of her own self on a tabloid that referred to her as Steven Tyler's teen lover. The caption under her photo read, she was 15 when they fell in love. He's described her as having more legs than a bucket of chicken. Attempts to contact Julia have been unsuccessful.
Okay, that was not Steven that... Is it Steven's fault that they posted that? Is that Steven's fault? That needs to be a whole nother lawsuit for the people who got a hold of those photos. Because you remember they were traveling together, so they were seen together, especially after she was 18. But everybody found out she'd been with him for a couple of years, especially because of the book. But Steven did he hand over the pictures in the story? If he did, then that's it. That is bad on him. But if some tabloid person gets a picture, I mean, let's blame the media. Like, they don't care about anybody's privacy. Media never does. They just want the hottest story out there.
So she went on back about her life. She was being a Catholic. She had got married. She had kids. She did all this stuff. And then one day she's just in the grocery store line and sees herself on a tabloid as Steven Tyler's teen lover. The article went on to describe certain details, including the fire that nearly killed her and the coerced termination. These were now published along with her status.
Okay, so she's upset because her secret shame is literally out to the world now. Everybody who loves Aerosmith and Steven Tyler, diehard fans, are going to publish this. And they're not going to... So, the fans aren't... They're going to cheer Steven on. They're going to be like, yeah. You know? And so now she's mad because here we're finally getting down to why she's upset. It's she wanted to hold her shame in secret. Boom, now the world knows.
As a victim of S assault, subjecting her to involuntary infamy. Stephen's ongoing pattern of conduct, including lurid references about her, his public statements, his publications, the widespread public interest of his actions, violated Julia's privacy. It required her to make apologies and disclose.
This is the hard part. Does it violate her privacy if it's his story too? He's not lying. He's overtelling the truth. And no, he doesn't feel shame, so he allowed it to be published. And here she is, full of shame, regret. This is what happens when you trade drugs for religion sometimes. The religion makes you feel a lot of shame.
Disclosures to her husband, her children, her family, her friends, that she never would have if it were not for the malicious publication of her details in Stephen's book. Julia has suffered specific and additional trauma and damages because of the public statements made by Stephen. Stephen knew, or should have known, that him publishing the private details of Julia had subjected her to public ridicule, harassment, trauma, aggravation, and continuation of the harm caused by the original assault. As a result of all of this assault, harassment, and abuse, Julia has suffered personal physical injury and will continue to suffer psychological, mental, and emotional distress, including but not limited to depression, anxiety, anger, agitation, loss of appetite, trouble concentrating, feeling degraded, loss of enjoyment of life, guilt, shame, humiliation, embarrassment, fear, fatigue, helplessness, loneliness, nightmares, PTSD, impairment of relationship, loss of self-esteem, sleeplessness, stomach problems, stress, difficulty with trust, and all associated financial or economic injury. These damages were all suffered as general, special, and consequential damages in amount to be proven at trial, so we don't know how much money it's going to be yet. We need experts to weigh in, but no less than the minimum jurisdictional amount of the court, which I don't know what the minimum jurisdictional amount of the court is. So the first cause of action is bleep battery against all defendants, so all 50 of them.
And all 50 of them, I bet, have the same story. She willingly took those tickets. She willingly went into his hotel room. She willingly let him be a guardian. She willingly lived with him. Just because she has shame now, does this mean that she can prosecute someone? It's like people say, this one guy, he tells people, once you say yes and we get going, don't say no, because you know, and that's actually bad to say that, but it's just like, please don't change your mind in the middle and get all upset at me, because this is what happens to guys. The women change their mind. She got to a Catholic hospital. She felt loved and supported there, while she was knowing she was doing bad things, and ultimately ended up in her first feelings of shame and guilt, and eventually, she made her way out not too long after that. But she could have took the way out before the abortion.
Julia realleges and incorporates everything above. Between 1973 and 1975, Stephen intentionally, recklessly, and wantonly did acts which were intended to and did result in a harmful and offensive contact with intimate parts of Julia's person. Julia was subjected to multiple instances of assault by Stephen during her time as a minor. Stephen performed all of these acts with the intent to cause harmful or offensive contact with an intimate part of Julia's person, and it would offend a reasonable sense of personal dignity. Further, these acts did cause a harmful or offensive contact. So he knew it was going to be harmful, offensive. The acts were harmful, offensive. Any reasonable person would think they were harmful, offensive. And
if all this happened in Seattle and Portland and all that, And now I guess she lives in California. How does California have jurisdiction? Unless, I mean, he got guardianship of her so that he could legally travel with her. But, oh.
It did in fact cause harm and offense. These acts constituted criminal conduct pursuant to the California Penal Code. Now, this is important here because she is suing in the civil court. But she's saying this was crimes. She's saying it's not just this, oh, I can sue him thing. He actually also violated the criminal code, the penal code. Because of Stephen's position of authority over Julia, and because of Julia's emotional and mental state, her young age, she was unable to give meaningful consent to these acts. As a direct result of Stephen's actions, Julia sustained serious and permanent injuries to her person, all of which are damages in an amount to be shown at trial. In subjecting Julia to the wrongful treatment that is described in this complaint, Stephen acted willfully and maliciously with the intent to harm Julia, and in conscious disregard for Julia's rights, to constitute malice and oppression under California's Civil Code. Plaintiff is entitled to the recovery of punitive damages in the amount to be determined in the court against Stephen and a sum to be shown according to proof. So that's the first one. S, battery. So battery and assault are two different codes. So this is the S, assault. Each count
it depends. Like Utah doesn't have battery anymore. We just have assault. Like every state is different because battery is when you actually hit somebody and assault is when you hold a weapon up to them and you're threatening to hit them, but you don't. That's assault. It sounds weird that battery is the actual one where you get hit. So they usually go together. Assault, they first assault you, they hold a weapon to you, and then battery comes after.
To be proven in its element. That was battery. Now we're getting to the assault. So Julia realleges everything she already said. Paragraph 35. Stephen, in doing the things that are alleged in here, including intending to subject Julia to numerous instances of abuse, molestation, he intended to cause the harmful or offensive contact with Julia's person, and he intended to put her in imminent apprehension of such contact. So that's probably the definition. Julia was put in imminent apprehension of a harmful or offensive contact by Stephen, and she actually believed that he had the ability to make the contact. Julia did not consent to this intended harmful or offensive contact with her person because she was a minor. She lacked the ability to consent meaningfully to contact with.
So basically she's saying I did consent to this, but I was 16, so technically I couldn't consent.
Any person under the statute, right? We're talking about the statutory code, which would say that if you are a minor in California, you do not have the legal ability to consent. Now, if you think about it also, I mean, he was her guardian. Like, that adds a whole nother level onto this. And
yeah, that was bad when he took over guardianship because it made the crime a lot worse. Because that literally shows the power he had above her. Because it's like, well, now you're stuck with me. I'm your guardian. Wherever I go, you have to go. And when he left her in that apartment alone, he's like, well, I gotta go, but you stay here. And I'll be back in like 5 days or whatever. You know, and she didn't check. She didn't check out her situation and say, I need a little more money for food or something. I mean, did Stephen honestly know that he left her with very little? I mean, we don't know. We don't know the conversation between the two. Or after he left, she noticed, crap, I have very little money and nothing to eat. And this superstar should have left me with crap load of everything. Because I have the right to all this stuff. He's got to watch over me. He's my guardian. And he didn't leave plenty of food. Or is it food you didn't like? I don't know.
Doing the things that Julia alleges in this complaint, Stephen violated Julia's right of protection from bodily restraint or harm and from personal insult. In doing the things that we talk about in the complaint, Stephen violated his duty pursuant to California Civil Code 1708.
The hard part about this story is we're getting the story from Julia 22 years later, when she feels all this shame, and now the public knows her shame, and now the public's gonna shame her, and that would suck. I imagine that would suck. That would. I'm not going against her on that. I understand why she's mad at that, especially if she looks kind of like her picture, you know, several years later, and people are like, "Ooh, that's you. Oh my gosh, can I have your autograph? You slept with Steven Tyler." That would definitely, like, I'd be suing him for, I don't know if you can even sue somebody for telling their side of the story. Because if you could be sued, why did the paper take it on? Because I can see, like I said, when we talk about consent, she consented, but legally California says, no, you can't consent. But when you're a 16-year-old doing drugs, you think you can consent. You think you have all these rights. You get your driver's license and you're free. And you think you have all these rights to do whatever you want. Try telling some 16-year-old that's on drugs that they're doing the wrong thing, and you try and tell him that this guy's taking advantage of you. And I guarantee you she'll say, no, he's not. He loves me. I love him. We have a good relationship. You're just jealous.
8, to abstain from injuring the person of the plaintiff or infringing upon her rights. And I think this is the guardian. Oh my God.
I mean, she doesn't have a bad case in a way. Like I said, the only thing that upsets me is she is getting away with the technicality that she was 16 and it went public. Steven went public about, after he got clean. After Steven, he got clean a few times. But after he got clean, he went on this truth tour kind of thing. Telling the truth of his life and how he got out of that life and everything. People do that. People tell stories of the life they were in and how they got out of it. And it's your side of the story. So, is it legal to punish somebody for telling their side of the story? I know that my in-laws tried to punish me for telling my side of the story on Facebook. They took me to court. But to be granted they won in being granted, because they said that I hit the mom. Their story, and basically, you know how easy it is to get a restraining order? Too easy. You just go in and you tell a judge, dude, this person assaulted me. And if that person over there sitting over there doesn't have a lawyer and doesn't have a way to defend themselves.
What was the scientist?
And they're like, even though they're sorry for their actions or whatever, and I could have said a couple things that might have not, that got me to win, but I didn't think about it till after. But whatever, I don't care. They can have restraining orders against me. I don't give a crap. They got their win there, but when I took it to jury trial, I got my win. So that's what matters, is I was proven innocent of the assault. So, so I wonder how this court case is gonna go, because these are two very different stories. And I bet all 50 people are going to get up there and say she loved the life. She was willing. She took the plane tickets. She took the guardianship. No, Steven didn't force her, threaten her. It doesn't say anything about being forced or threatened up there to take the plane tickets to. He said, hey, I would like to see you again. I can fly you. I have the money to fly you. And, yeah. So, I don't know. This is a really hard case because she's got some grounds to kind of stand on. But in a way, it's like, I'm sorry you feel all this shame and it got put out into the world. I don't know, because anybody can say anything about you that they want.
Jump the shark on that one. As a result of the above described conduct, Julia has suffered and continues to suffer great pain of mind and body, shock, emotional distress, physical manifestations of emotional distress, including embarrassment, loss of self-esteem, disgrace, humiliations, and loss of enjoyment of life. She has suffered and will continue to suffer and was prevented and will continue to be prevented from performing daily activities and obtaining the full enjoyment of life. She will sustain loss of earnings and earning capacity, and or she will continue to incur expenses for medical and psychological treatment, therapy, and counseling. And then Julia goes on ahead and alleges that Stephen's conduct was oppressive, malicious, despicable.
I'm not saying she doesn't need, she needs therapy and treatment. She does. But nobody's looking at the blame on the parents, because they briefly mentioned it in this video. You blame the parents only because they signed over. No, you blame the parents for the way they raised her. They raised her with low self-esteem, and she had were her parents divorced or not? I mean, people take divorce really hard. What, buddy? You want to blow this up? And so she already had all that mental disability when Stephen met her. Yes, he took advantage of that. That was wrong. That he knew that she would consent to everything he wanted to do because she has, and that's what the lady also looks for when she hires these 16-year-olds to meet these rock guys. They look for damaged kids that are damaged by their parents, that a shot at a life of fame and a rock star lifestyle, they're not going to turn it down.
It was intentional and done in conscious disregard for the rights and safety of others. They were carried out with a conscious disregard of plaintiff's right to be free from tortious behavior, entitling Julia to punitive damages against Stephen in an amount appropriate to punish and set an example of Stephen. So she's saying the amount should be appropriate to punish him, but also,
like I said, Stephen feels no shame. He published it. She's punishing him. She wants to set an example out of him so other girls can feel free about punishing. And like she said earlier, it kind of started with R. Kelly. People willingly taking these jobs with these stars, kind of knowing what's going to happen, and they don't leave these jobs. They stick with it. They stay on the bus. You can get off the bus at any time. Did somebody hold a gun to your head and say, no, you can't leave this bus? Get your butt back there. See? Punish and set an example of. It's not... When you say that, is it really about all your PTSD and everything? Because, yeah, she's angry. She sees this tabloid. So now you want to punish them. You want them to hurt like you hurt. So they think, okay, I'm going to take him to court and sue him and get money. And I can stand on the technicality that I was 16 and technically couldn't consent. Even though I consented, I technically, legally, can stand on the...
to set an example of him. So they're trying to set an example or set a precedent here. The third and final cause of action is intentional infliction of emotional distress. And the intentional infliction of emotional distress is for both of the child assaults, causing the ensuing involuntary infamy for the prophet. Now, again, this is against all defendants. This isn't just against defendant Doe 1, but she does just kind of name him. And remember, earlier, she kind of tied in all these people together and said they're not even separable. Some of them are even maybe alter egos of the other ones. She goes on to say, Stephen intended his outrageous behavior. He knew, or he should have known, that the extreme emotional distress that occurred would likely result. He consciously and
If you're saying yes and you're saying I like that, and you're purposely taking those plane tickets and you're purposely walking into that hotel room with him, how does he know that he's causing you emotional distress if you keep saying yes? I'm waiting to see. It would be interesting to see how all 50 defendants answer this, because this is her side of the story. Yes, she was 16 legally. She can't technically consent, even though she consented. It's called statutory rape.
intentionally orchestrated, conducted, and participated in the assaults while she was a minor. In an ongoing pattern of conduct that has existed since the time of the assaults through the present day, Stephen intentionally publicized the acts that he perpetrated upon Julia for his profit and fame. The conduct reached a crescendo when his multiple books were published, describing the assaults of plaintiff. And
I don't remember the book. I remember some really bad parts, like the first time Stephen ever had a relationship with a woman. That was a bad part of the book. That's something that doesn't get out of your head. What was I gonna say? that part of the book is like disturbing my brain every time I think about the book. But okay, is she the only one in the book? She got one small paragraph out of a whole book. A whole fat... That was a fat book, by the way. It was I don't even know if I finished it, because it was a pretty fat book. And yeah, it kind of makes you not like Steven Tyler, because you look at his life and you're going, ew.
and other traumatic and painful private.
But Steven Tyler also had, as he writes in his book, he talks about growing up as a child, and his parents would go up to their cabins and stuff, and they would sing and put on shows and everything. And he actually wrote his real name, which is Steven Tallarico, on a rock, because he wanted people to know him. He was afraid that he would never find fame. He wanted fame, but he had low self-esteem. So he's kind of damaged too, a little bit. But you say as an adult, he still was an adult. But both of these people, he knows what she feels like. He can empathize with her, because him growing up, his desire to be known, he thought he was gonna die and not be known, and so he wrote his name on a rock, a big rock that people could see from far away, so that he could say, well, people will drive past this and ask who Steven Tallarico is, or hey, I know Steven, and that's the only way he thought he was gonna get known in this life.
Private matters for a plaintiff who was a child and a victim of a bleep crime. Stephen knew, or should have known, plaintiff would be seriously and irreparably harmed. When Stephen's assaults of Julia stopped, he refused to let her heal and keep that abuse private from her community and her family. While Julia had kept her past private, Stephen's conduct included, but was not limited to, publishing information about his assaults of Julia that caused the public to identify Julia as a victim of childhood assault, trauma, and a coerced pregnancy termination. Stephen's conduct, as alleged throughout the complaint, was outrageous in various ways, including that he assaulted Julia and displaying his abuse of her at the time it was occurring. And from that...
So I'm not saying Steven Tyler's not totally wrong, but see, in his head, she consented to all of this. He doesn't know that she's got all this shame about it. She was one of Steven's girlfriends,
day forward.
That brought her fame. He brought her fame. Yeah, he talked about she knew how. Well, she knew. Which tells me she consented and she liked it. But that's Steven's side. Her side is, no, she didn't know. And, you know.
Because of Steven's status as a world-famous rock star, he achieved special status and power in the media, in the world generally. Steven abused his position of power, afforded to him by fame, and describing his...
So basically what she's saying is this famous guy published this story and it's just going to bring him more fame because, like I said, what fan is going to look at this book and be like, dude, he should be sued. This guy should be sued. Nobody looks at the magazine and says, this guy needs to be sued.
His assault of Julia in various media outlets, including but not limited to his books, memoirs, and other public statements, knowing that Julia would be susceptible to mental distress and acting intentionally or unreasonably with full recognition that his acts would cause the mental distress. Steven...
No, he didn't call her and say, I'm publishing my memoirs and you are in it because you're over 2 years of my life. And she didn't get a chance to say, no, I have all this shame now. Please don't make it public.
Steven's conduct exceeded all bounds of decency and is odious and utterly intolerable in a civilized society. His conduct...
But I also didn't call up my in-laws and say, hey, I'm posting my story about my concussion that you gave me and my broken tailbone on Facebook. I just put it up there. I missed one family member. I deleted all the family members, but I missed one because he had a different last name. Oops. And the Facebook post got spread to the family because they check on my Facebook every 5 minutes. And they're like, she's lying. And it's like, no, I'm not. My side of the story is the true one. Yours is the lie. And that's why I took it to jury trial. Because if I took the plea deal, people could say, yeah, you're guilty of the assault and everything, Rose, because, well, you took the plea deal, which when you take a plea deal, it usually means you admit some fault. And, I didn't want the family to be able to say, look, Rose has some fault in it. My parents' story could be true. So I took it to court, took the 911 tapes to court, took everything to court, and proved my story, because the 911 tape stories are different than the stories they told on the stand. And that's how I was found not guilty, because my father-in-law misstepped. He didn't know about 911 tapes. He didn't know that you could take 911 tapes to court. So when he took me to court, they thought with their story, two people telling closely the same, they didn't tell the same story, closely the same story, that I would get punished. And if I was found guilty at a jury trial, I'd be punished harsher than if I took the plea. But, they were so mad when I came out innocent. I'm glad they told the truth on the 911 tapes. Because not only did I prove evidence that I was telling the truth, the 911 tapes, when you take a 911 tape to court, it is without a doubt, like, one of the most trusted evidence in a courtroom. She never called 911 or anything. She had called 911 anytime in those first couple years. She'd have a huge leg to stand on. Like, if you call 911, and I'm not saying this, don't call 911 and tell them a lie, please. You tell the truth on the 911 tape, and, but my father-in-law didn't know that, and I surprised him with that evidence at court, and, I surprised him because he found out about him, but he only picked up 2 of them. He didn't know about the 3rd tape, and I picked up the 3rd tape. And so he was angry because there was a 3rd tape. He literally sat there on the stand and said, well, I haven't reviewed this 3rd tape, so I don't know how truthful it is. And it's like, dude, it's a 911 tape. It doesn't matter whether you reviewed it or not. It's all good. The information is all going to be the same. You can review it all you want. But anyways, yeah, let's get on with the story.
Was intentional and reckless. His conduct caused emotional distress in the minor, Julia, and this emotional distress was and continues to be severe and extreme. As a result of the above described conduct, plaintiff Julia has suffered and continues to suffer and, all these symptoms again. As a result of all this conduct above, Julia has, against her will, become a central figure.
You want me to tie this to it?
That has deprived her of the ability to proceed under a pseudonym or Jane Doe in this very lawsuit, because confidentiality.
Okay, that was Steven Tyler's bad. If he wanted to tell the story, there shouldn't have been pictures and there shouldn't have been names. He should have protected her privacy, because she left him and not wanting to be in this life anymore and feeling guilty for being in this life. Yeah, he probably should have known that years later, telling the story and literally tacking her name and photos to it would bring all this back up, and she would have to talk about it again and again, because people are going to recognize her. Either her picture or her name. At your local grocery store. I can't imagine going to your local grocery store and seeing a tabloid about yourself and going, oh, all this stuff I did with him, it's here.
Of her identity, likeness, and privacy rights normally would be afforded to a victim of this type of crime.
But see, this lawsuit should be about that. About him not... Because his story could be true. So it should just be about the tabloid and the book. That's it. Like when OJ wrote that book, they couldn't get OJ for the murders, but they got him for the book. And that was good. She should have just got him for the book. Just not 49 other defendants. It should have been just Steven alone, for the publicity that she never asked for.
But it was ripped aside by Steven Tyler's actions. Steven Tyler forced upon Julia a constant state of involuntary infamy.
What's infamy again? What is infamy? I'm trying to figure out why they're using the word infamy. I don't know what infamy means. Infamy. My brain doesn't want to think right now. State of being well known for some bad quality or deed. An evil or wicked act. Okay? So they're saying that constant state of wicked or bad. So that's the technical term for wicked or bad acts.
As disgrace, dishonor, disrepute, and feeling a constant state of being...
Well, no, if you were young and you did all that stuff with a rock star, and now you're normal, and you're living a typical normal life and a normal life with your husband in the bedroom, and you would never do those things again, yeah, this would bring up PTSD and anxiety, and because the world now knows about you, and you sit there and you think, who knows, who at my grocery store that I know that goes to that grocery store saw this, recognized me, bought it because it was me, and now they're sitting there reading every shameful act I did with him. No, because those shouldn't people, but people It's stupid because the media loves those bedroom stories. They love them. People if you want to be famous, put out a sex tape.
Known for a depraved and shameful bleep act, when in reality, Julia was the victim of a bad act. Childhood blank assault. As a result of the above noted conduct, Julia was required to make disclosures of private, traumatic, painful, and personal nature from her personal life that would not have been made otherwise. These disclosures caused plaintiff extreme and ongoing damages and pain.
So yeah, like I said, she should be suing the news that put it out, Steven Tyler for participating in it coming out, if he did. It hasn't said if he did or not. But he did willingly publish it in the book. He didn't put her name, he just called her a 16-year-old. And yeah, he put her name in the back of the book, but nobody's going to figure it out. Well, now they'll make the connection when they see the tabloid. If they've read the book, then they'll make the connection if they read the credits.
And suffering. So then they go on to the prayer for relief and say, Julia prays for judgment against defendants, all of them, as follows.
And why did she even buy the book? Why? Why did she even buy the book? How does she know about her in the book? If she put Steven Tyler in her past and she was keeping it a quiet shame, or maybe she found out about the book after the tabloid, maybe, I don't know. Because I'm like, why did she buy the book?
For past, present, and future general damages in an amount to be determined, special damages, future lost earnings, economic damages.
Told you,
any
statutory.
Statutory damages, including attorney's fees.
Because if you're a willing 16-year-old, but legally you can't consent, it's called statutory. And she's finally stating that correctly. That this isn't rape, this isn't kidnapping, it's statutory. So I guess she could get him on statutory and the tabloid, and I think that's about it. I don't know. Statutory and tabloid. I don't know what they would do about the abortion, because she's still got to go in and consent and write it, but I don't even know if they could sit there and say, well, she had you forced her to go into that clinic, and you forced her to sign her consent. Well, he gave her an ultimatum. She took the wrong side of the ultimatum.
The costs of the suit, the court costs, pre and post judgments and interest as allowed by law, attorney's fees pursuant to the statutes and otherwise allowable by law, for exemplary damages, meaning make an example out of him, punitive damages in an amount to be determined at trial, for disgorgement of all.
See, she wants to, his side of the story's been told. She wants to flip it on him and get him with some technicalities under the law. Because she's so much shame. So much shame.
Monies and profits derived from defendant's memoirs, statements, and publications. So she wants money from the memoirs that he made because she was involuntarily outed as the victim. And for such other further relief as...
He said in the book that she knew how to. He didn't force her. He didn't teach her. He was happy with her because she knew how to. And how did she present herself to Steven Tyler to get him to choose her? Because I'm sure she didn't just walk up and say hi and act all shy and be like, you know, because he's not going to pick the shy one that stands away.
As the court may deem proper. That is the end of that particular lawsuit filing. I know this video is getting long, but this is such an important issue. I really want to put important issue with it.
It's just, is this a real lawsuit? Should it be there, or is this a whole shame after everything? And she literally states she's trying to punish him and set an example of him for other rock stars and stuff. You want this tied or blown up and tied? I'll blow it up just a little bit. I don't want to blow it up too hard because I don't want to pass out. Ugh. I don't know. This is a hard lawsuit because I can understand where she's coming from, all the shame and everything. But when she literally states she wants to punish him, like I said earlier, I said, let's find out how this ends. I bet you it's a bad breakup. It ends horrible. Now she has all this shame, and I didn't literally state wants to punish and make an example of it, but when she showed that part, I was like, see, she's got all this shame and guilt, and Steven doesn't. He's getting money off it. He's getting more fame off it.
Julia's public statement. So Julia has released, the victim here, the plaintiff, has released a public statement through her lawyers. She has said in the statement that this is going to be her only statement on the matter. So I want to pull that up and read it. I want it to live historically along with this complaint because I think it's important to allow her to have her voice, and this is the way that she has chosen to express her voice outside of the courts. Below is the official statement from courageous survivor Julia Misley, formerly Julia Holcomb, regarding her experience of being groomed, exploited, and abused by a singer of a world-famous rock band as a minor.
Okay. Oh my gosh. It says, I have discovered that through a recent change in the law, I have a new opportunity to take legal action against those that abused me in my youth. She wants this action to expose an industry that protects celebrity offenders, to cleanse and hold an accountable an industry that both exploited and allowed me to be exploited for years, along with so many other naive and vulnerable. She should be suing the lady that brought her to Steven. Oh, this lady's suing Steven Tyler because he brought out that book and that memoir and named her in it.
Yeah, Steven Tyler from another group. I can't.
So she's trying to punish the rock industry with this.
I don't think she's gonna have much luck. Them guys been sued before.
Well, okay, so legally, Dad, she was 16. You can't legally consent at 16. Even though
Had sex with her at 16.
she was 16, Steven Tyler was like 25, 26. He was like 10 years older than her.
For that for quite a while.
Huh?
Yeah, is that stuff we ordered at Walmart ready? That headset and all
No,
that?
this one was frothy.
Give me a second. Let me go to break real quick and look at that.
Alright. And then we'll get it set up and then
Sorry, had to take care of something. Oh, I'm so exhausted. I'm so exhausted. Oh, I can't. Walking to another room feels like I just ran down the street or ran around the neighborhood. So I'm exhausted. What do you guys think? I mean, just because she has shame and wants to punish them, does she have a right to... She said, I have discovered... So basically she's complaining about Steven Tyler putting that out. And somebody says, hey, there's a law that technically you were 16 and the statute is not 8 years, it's like 50 years. You know? But really, I think she should be suing. Maybe she's one of the defendants because she should be suing the woman industry, knowing that they're propositioning girls for music stars, and Steven Tyler for publishing. I don't know. Like I said, can you punish someone for publishing their side of the story?
She says, my name is Julia Misley, formerly Julia Holcomb. I am making this statement because at the age of 65, I have discovered that through a recent change in the law, I have a new opportunity to take legal action against those that abused me in my youth. I want this action to expose...
So she's 65 now. So... That's 47 years later. 47 years later.
An industry that protects celebrity offenders, to cleanse and hold accountable an industry that both exploited and allowed me to be exploited for years, along with so many other...
But the whole thing is she joined that industry. Why did she join that industry? I want to know what she was thinking, why she joined that industry in the first place. Like I said, it's not like she had a backstage pass, got to meet Steven Tyler, and he kidnapped her up to his hotel room. She met him through an industry that gets girls that are willing to be seduce famous people, because famous people, when they go on tour, they love groupies. Some of them, they love groupies. They're called groupies for a reason. People do kind of laugh at them for being groupies. So she was a professional groupie, not a groupie, but a professional one. She willing, but then again, she's leaning on the law, the technicality. She was 16. She couldn't consent to legally being.
They're naive and vulnerable kids and adults.
Yes, she was naive. She was vulnerable. She had mental illness from her parents. She didn't have a great childhood. She was one of those teens. But that's what they prey on. Unfortunately, they do. But in a way, like, it's bad to prey on them. It is. I'm not saying they are. But these girls also go looking for it. But should they? No. Should people... There shouldn't be industries where people purposely take in 16-year-olds for rock stars in their 20s or 30s or 40s because they want a young one. They don't want to sleep with somebody their age anymore. I mean, that is wrong. That is... And everybody knows the industry does that. And everybody... over the years, like I said, they call them groupies. Everybody knows that there's an industry out there that does it, and groupies have come out later telling their story of being a groupie and everything, and because they're young, they are naive. A lot of them come from bad homes, and it's like, well, what if I got a rock star to fall in love with you?
Julia says, because I know.
Oh, and like I said, she did state earlier in the thing that he made me think that this was a romantic.
That I am not the only one who suffered abuse in the music industry. I feel it is time for me to take this stand and bring this action to speak up and stand in solidarity with other survivors. I hope that from this action, we can make the music industry safer, expose the predators in it, and expose those forces in the industry that have both enabled and created a culture of permissiveness and self-protection of themselves and the celebrity offenders.
Well, the hard part about this lawsuit is she didn't care about bringing down the industry until he wrote that book. And she was, if he was 64 when he wrote it, she would have been, because she's 10 years young. Yeah, she would have been 55. So she doesn't get mad at the industry until they bring her name public. And now she wants to punish them. She didn't care about all the other women that went through it. She didn't, and not until things got published specifically about her. And now all of a sudden she cares about all the other girls that went through the same thing as her.
Mom, I can blow up a balloon.
I mean, fine, whatever, sue him. I'm interested on how this court case goes. I don't know if they're gonna televise it or not. Because it just seems like she has like a little bit of a messed up. She got angry that she went public, and then they found, within the next 10 years she found out about the law, and then she went and found a lawyer that would do this.
Among them, the complaint that has been prepared by my legal team recites in legal terms the trajectory of my life from early struggles to exploitation by Steven Tyler, the music industry, my escape from that world, my recovery and transformation, my restoration of spirit through faith, the building of a family, and the rebuilding of my life. The complaint also recites how Tyler, for profit and more fame, re-traumatized me and my family. I am grateful for this new opportunity to take action and be heard. My own recovery came through my Catholic faith. For years, I have...
Yeah, because she's gonna, if Steven Tyler posts that in a magazine and she calls that magazine and tells her side of the story, they're gonna be like, no, we like this story better. We like Steven's story better, you know? And so a lawsuit is the only way she can get her story out.
Watch Jeff Anderson and his firm make a difference in creating a safer place in the Roman Catholic Church and in faith communities across this country. I've been able to see how things within the church have improved because of those legal efforts.
This one is too hard.
I recently learned that the law in California opened a window of opportunity for me and other survivors to bring action and to have our voices heard in a way that we had not before. And that led me to Jeff Anderson and his team. I believe that together we can make a difference, my voice can be heard, and become a part of the cleansing of an industry that needs to be both exposed and held accountable. I am publicly releasing this statement with the intention of making no further statements or interviews. Please contact my legal team, Jeff Anderson and Associates, with questions and requests. We have Jeff Anderson, Mike Reck, and Karen Menzies for the contact information. So that is all that I have for today as far as reading the complaint and going through the allegations. It is pretty vile. It is pretty bad. And to be honest, I don't love talking about it, but we have to, because just like Julia said, this is an industry that needs to be cleansed. Now she says
it's not right what they do. It's not right that they go find these vulnerable girls. They do it all over the world. How do you, she's getting her story out, I guess, but how do you stop world? It wasn't like, oh, it's just this one industry in Portland. You need to stop.
For her, that was through her Catholic faith. Through others, it may be through a different method and a different route. But we do need to start calling this stuff what it was. This was not a romantic love affair. And this is why we have laws that put the age of...
She said that he made her think it was a romantic love affair. She literally stated that in the lawsuit, that he made me think this was until the abortion. She realized it wasn't a romantic love affair when he wanted to abort his own kid.
Mom, I gotta go to the bathroom.
So that's when she woke up. Was the abortion woke her up. And she said, you're starting to tell yourself, if he loved me, he really wanted to be with me, he wouldn't abort our kid. Because she would have had the kid at 18. You put your age on the birth certificate as 18, but nobody goes and does, the nurses and stuff don't go do the math and say, oh, you got pregnant like a month or two before you turned 18? To this guy? You know? I know people who were pregnant who had babies by people 20 years older than them. This one girl I met at a teen pregnancy class I went to, she was 16, 15, something like that. She was young, and she had, her baby's father was 35. And she was happy to have the baby. She came to parenting classes and stuff. I don't think he got sued or anything. She was open about the father being 35. I mean, I don't think anybody came down on him for that. But the news would have been interested in somebody having Steven Tyler's baby. Probably it would have been his first baby. It would have been all over the news or something. So, you know, and then he went on to have kids with other girls, but not her. So yeah, she's upset because he's got kids with women he's not married to. He didn't make them abort the kid. I mean, look at Liv Tyler. Steven wasn't around for her life, really.
Of consent around 18. Now, we could certainly get into arguments whether the age of consent should be raised, should be lowered. The reality is, a lot of people make decisions when they are 16, when they are 15, when they are 17, that once they reach adulthood, once their frontal lobe is fully developed, they realize exactly all the variables of the situation that they were not able to realize when they were in it. For all of...
Exactly, because between the ages of 12 and 25, your brain is a sponge. It is a perfect time for learning. It is when you should be learning second languages, and you should be going to college and learning as much as you can before 25, before that shuts down in your brain, because at 25 that shuts down at your brain, and then that's when memory loss comes in. Memory loss comes in at 25, but it's so low you don't even know it. It's so little, it's so tiny. You don't start noticing it until you get into your 30s, like about 10 years later. Then you're like, oh, my memory is kind of... But you didn't know that it's been dropping since you were 25, since your brain was fully formed and done with. And by the time she was 25, and her brain was fully formed and she was done with that stuff, she was in the Catholic Church getting penance for what she did. And I don't know if she was married to her second husband at that time. But basically, by the time her brain formed, she formed a lot of shame.
All of the complaining that I do about statutory changes and lobbyist groups changing laws, I have to acknowledge that I believe, in my personal opinion, that this law being changed, this window of opportunity being opened, was a good thing, especially in this particular case, in this particular instance. Because Julia maybe would have been fine to just let this whole thing go. She did not tell the people in her life about all of this stuff because she was ashamed. Now, I don't believe that Julia should be ashamed of what happened, because it's explainable and it's justified based on...
Go show that to Daddy. Don't hit the button. Just go show that to Daddy.
But if Julia is ashamed, who the hell am I to tell her, as the victim of these crimes, that she shouldn't be, right? So who am I to tell her how she should handle the situation now as a grown adult? But Stephen then later on came up.
I don't know if it's being truthful or not.
And published his memoir just 10 years ago that named Julia. She was on the front page of tabloids. At that point, she was trying to be like this devout Catholic. She had a husband, she had kids, she had her whole thing going on. And it's like, I can't imagine how that's fair for him to continue dragging this up, but it's not fair for her to be able to.
He is dragging it up because I don't know why 40 some odd years later he's still infatuated with her. He's still in love with her. They must have done some things together that were special to him. Because he's had girls before Julie and he's had girls after Julie. So I don't know why, and it would be a little upsetting to find out that you've moved on with your life and put that in your past, and the guy you were with is still infatuated with your life. Or with that time. He's so infatuated with it that he publicized it. I mean, what did Julie do that made him so infatuated? Go get the thermometer from Dad.
To sue for it. I'm very pleased that Julia was able to get her complaint filed in time, and I am certainly looking forward to following along on this case. I
want to follow along on this case because I think some things are right and some things are wrong. Like, she should be after the lady, and she should be after Steven Tyler for publishing what they did. But because she was 16 and technically couldn't consent, even though she consented to those things, she wanted to keep it private. Because she rebranded herself and got a whole new life. And when somebody brings out something that you're trying to keep private, that you're ashamed of. Sorry. I'm sick. I don't know. I mean, I would just sue Steven Tyler for making it publicized. And I would sue the agency that took her to Steven Tyler, knowing that she was 16, damaged, and that they prey on damaged women. Or damaged girls. Let's say damaged girls. Because a 16-year-old does think they can consent. They do. Most people start having sex about 16 years old because they think that they have a right to start using their body how they want. And they think that they deserve to experience that kind of stuff. Colin, will you go get the thermometer from Dad? So, my fever just said it was 104. That's bad. I don't feel 104, but I feel better than yesterday, but yeah, so she should just be suing for the statutory rape and the making it public. Sue Steven of that. Just like, when OJ brought out his book and it's like, if I killed her. It's kind of like that OJ situation.
Mommy.
And that was really disrespectful. He got sued for the books, and rightfully.
Mommy.
What? So I guess you can sue for what people publish because he published that. What? What?
Can you? I won't give it back.
I know, I kind of got down on her earlier for consenting to all of it. I wouldn't want my 16-year-old to consent to all that. I wouldn't even want my 18-year-old to consent to that. What?
I won't give
Okay, well tell him Mommy would like it back. Dawn, give it to him! Oh, sorry. I wanted to show my husband that it said 104. I don't know if that thermometer's off or not. Let's see, trying to think. Okay, then don't go get it. I will go get it. I will walk my butt in there that hurts like crazy, and I will go get it.
Oh, well, I'm going to eat it.
Let's see what more she has to say.
I'm interested in seeing what Steven Tyler's lawyer's reaction to this lawsuit is going to be.
Okay.
And I am certainly looking forward to the outcome of this case. Now, I will say a lot of cases of this type end up getting settled. NDAs or non-disclosure agreements are filed, and I
These
can
are
imagine
wet.
that
Here,
is
give
a
'em all to me.
possible eventual outcome here. From a sort of selfish
Now it says
perspective, I
102.
would like for this case to go all
That
the
might
way.
be
I
more
would like
right.
for Julia to win. I would like for Steven to have to pay her a lot of money. But from a human perspective and an empathy perspective, I can totally understand how it will be painful and traumatic for her to continuously go along with this lawsuit, because we see how victims and alleged victims are treated in lawsuits and how the questions go and how they're re-traumatized.
Oh yeah, she's gonna totally be asked about how much she consented to everything that her and Steven did. When you do a lawsuit like this, okay, so a little bit of information has come out through what Steven wrote. I mean, he wrote a small paragraph that just says she knew how to... We don't know exactly what nasty means. Exactly.
Let's have a pet race. Let's have a pet race. What if a pet swim?
What was I gonna say? My kids are bugging me.
A pet
So,
trophy.
yeah, the lawyers are gonna grill her on all the consent and everything, and her part in... I mean, I know, but they're still going to stand on the statutory rule. She was still 16. Even though she loved the life, she consented to it until the abortion. The abortion, going to that Catholic clinic, changed her. And rightfully so. That would change me. I would be upset if somebody forced me to abort a baby. So it is. She would have been 18 by the time she had it, so the abortion wasn't the answer. And she should have been wearing... He should have made sure that she was wearing protection, or that he was. He should have been like, well, you got to get on birth control. Like, rock stars get in that kind of trouble because they never say, dude, are you on birth control? Let's go get you some birth control, and I'll, give it to you every day and make sure you're on it. Where's the other cords, you guys? Where's the other cords, Colin? Yeah, this is a hard case.
Re-abused in these cases. So hopefully it doesn't end up happening like that for Julia. I'm hoping that she has a very supportive team around her, both legal team and family and community. I'm hoping no one is judging her, making her feel ashamed or humiliated or embarrassed about this stuff, because frankly, in my opinion, she should not feel that way. It's clear to me that she was not.
No, I can't believe that, like, 50 some odd years later,
Mommy, my help.
that she still has a bunch of shame around it. And I can't believe that Steven shouldn't have named her and put pictures up. They should have blurred her face out. They should have took her name out. If he wanted to tell that story, he should have protected her. That way it could be any 16-year-old. Any 16-year-old. And the other harsh thing is when people publicly tell their stories of being with a 16-year-old, the law doesn't read this story and automatically step in and go to his door and arrest him and say, you just admitted up to doing some real illegal stuff. It's like, no, people just read the tabloids and, like I said, they just gossip about it. They just gossip about his little teen girlfriend, the little groupie that he snagged. And to be branded this little groupie is when you are trying to live the best life possible.
Not
What?
around a bunch of adults who had any damn sense. They were signing away her legal rights to some grown man who was, you know, doing drugs and drinking and had every other thing going on. She wasn't taken care of. She wasn't cared for. She wasn't protected. And I am standing with Julia. Listen, we definitely disagree on a lot of stuff. I haven't done a lot of research on Julia, but the research I have done shows that politically, we do not have the same opinions. Ethically, morally, we don't even seem to necessarily have exactly the same compass, but that doesn't matter. What matters is she was wronged and she deserves justice. And at the very minimum, the story deserves to be told for what it is and not covered in this smokescreen of, oh, it was a romantic relationship. No, it was not. It was coercion and it was abuse.
She said in her statement that he made her think it was a romantic. Until the abortion woke her up that it wasn't, because if it was a romantic thing and he loved her, he would have loved having a kid with her. The abortion woke her up to, I'm just a thing to him, a hot little thing to him. And that's all I am.
Stand with Julia, and I hope that she is able to get some peace of mind, some version of justice, and if she can't get either one of those, I hope she does get a lot of money. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it does send a message to the rest of these people who think that they're going to keep acting like this. The tides have turned and the times have changed. This wasn't no she was 16 and knew how to nasty. That's disgusting. It's vile. It's depraved and deranged.
It is, but it's also telling this part of the story that she knew, like he didn't have to teach her, like she knew, and he was impressed with that. And what?
Can you make Iggy play with me?
And no, she can't consent to that. What? I'm doing a stream, and you're being rude. What? Wesley, play with your brother. I gotta probably end this stream soon. I mean, this is a hard topic because there was a lot of consent, and that line tells you that there was consent, but it's embarrassing that she even consented to that at that young of age. That someone would get her to consent to that stuff. It's embarrassing. But like I said, she never had to take the plane ticket. She knew. She knew what was going to happen if she took the plane ticket. She could have stopped it a long time ago if she was down and depressed about what he was doing to her and hurting her. And she didn't like what was going on. She didn't have to take the ticket to Boston. She didn't have to bring him home to get guardianship. She didn't have to leave with him as her guardian. These things take days, take time to get guardianship and stuff. This takes time. Like I said, these things take time. And so they took the time to do all this. And yes, Steven should not have allowed a 16-year-old to consent to all of that. But he was amazed and he was impressed and infatuated with her that he said, damn the consequences. Same with when he wrote the book in the damn the consequences, I love this girl. And, you know, she was one of the best I ever had. What? Stop it! Get out if you're gonna cry. Can you guys go out there and play for a minute while I finish here?
Let's start calling it what it is, y'all. Because if we don't, we are doomed and condemned to repeat this over and over. This child abuse. And I will be damned if I leave this world not having done every single thing that I could to change that culture, starting with highlighting cases like this.
Well, that's the problem why people didn't like rock and roll coming about. Because it was a world of drugs and... Colin, stop! You're kicking my computer! I can't make Wesley play with you. Get out, both of you. Go, go. Go out and play. Go. Go.
I don't want to play Roblox, and he wants to play Roblox.
Wesley, go play with him for a minute and then we'll play Roblox, okay? So anyways, sorry about that. My 5-year-old is quite demanding. Or 6-year-old. He's quite demanding that people play with him and stuff. And I don't know how to knock that attitude off. I gotta figure out how to knock that attitude that, okay, Wesley doesn't want to play with you. He doesn't have to. But right now they're both crying, so I need to kick them out. Anyways. So, yeah, this is a hard case. I mean, when I first saw it and started reading it, I was just like, look at all this consent and stuff. She went to the industry. She knew she was being presented to Steven Tyler for physical things to go down. I'm sure she wasn't that naive. I'm sure that, but like I said, it's because of her mental illness that her parents put on, not Steven. She was already there and they already stated that, but they put it kind of in the background, which it needs to be more in the forefront, that she was damaged goods when she met Steven. Not physically damaged goods, but mentally. She was down, she was depressed, she had low self-esteem. She couldn't believe the rock star chose her. It made her feel good. And that not only did he choose her for one night, he asked her to go to Seattle the next day. He said, I like you so much. And she knew what they did the night before, and she accepted the ticket. And then she accepted the next ticket. And so on. Why didn't she feel shame after at least the first ticket? And the same things happened two nights in a row. Why didn't she feel
Mom, I
shame?
forgot the code.
It's okay. I got it. I don't know. I don't know her. I haven't met her. I don't know why all this is stopping her from getting future jobs and everything. I mean, did she go in to interview and an employer said, oh, you're that chick on the magazine, you're Steven Tyler's girl? Because she's in her 50s. She's so close to retirement. Hey, she sues Steven Tyler. She's got a good retirement. Because he should have been taking care of her, and now she's making him take care of her by suing him. So now she's going to get taken care of him by the way he should have in the first place.
Mom,
What?
I don't feel so good.
Yeah, that's why I kept you home from school today. I think we're all sick. Here, let me take your temperature.
So that's why you keep me home from school?
Because you're sick and you might get other kids sick. We're all sick here in the house except for Daddy. Just barely. You got it barely a fever. It's 99.2. That's barely.
I have a small fever.
In the
Just-
meantime, facts ain't defamation. Love you, mean it. Okay, bye.
Yeah. I like I said, I don't know exactly what to think of that. I don't know exactly what to think of that. I mean, she does have some rights and some grounds to stand on. And, yeah, she has some rights and some grounds to stand on. technically. It just sucks because it does feel like this is all out of shame. Literally, she just wants to punish him for not having shame and for still fantasizing about her. It's like, okay, it's been 50 years and you're still fantasizing about me. Stop. Because I don't want people to know you fantasize about me. I don't want people to know what we did together. I just want that part of my life to disappear. It's like my new life started when I went home and I rebranded myself and I got a life. When she started getting off drugs and thinking clearly. Because also, I don't know if there's a law about, I mean, could she consent if she was given drugs too? I mean, can't consent because you're 16. Can consent under the influence. Like, she could probably get him for statutory rape under the influence if he gave her the drugs that take down her capacity to say no or feel things. And the next day she finds out what all went on and she feels a little embarrassed about it. Maybe who has never done something in the bedroom that the next day you're going, should I have done that? No. No. Never gonna do it again. Alright. So, what was I gonna say? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Oh crap, I did something wrong. Oops. Oh well. Hold on. I gotta end this video and then go edit it and stuff. But I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you don't think I went terribly too harsh on her. I mean, I stand on kind of like both sides of the thing. Like, I believe Steven has his story and all those defendants have the story how she consented. But the law does state, and I wouldn't want my 16-year-old consenting to a rock and roll lifestyle. And so she has this huge leg to stand on that she was 16 at the time. Because had she been 18 when she met him? If they said, no, you have to be 18 to be in this, and she met him at 18, she wouldn't have a leg to stand on. She's a full consenting adult. And if you willingly take the plane ticket and show up willingly at the hotel room, I don't know if you can claim. I guess she's trying to claim persuasion and power and influence. Like, I got all this money. I'm Steven Tyler, baby. I can do anything I want because I'm Steven Tyler. And we do have that problem in the industry that, like, Martha Stewart was one of the first therapies. Like, finally, they punished a famous person for something. It was like, if you're famous, you're not going to get punished. Nobody wants to punish a famous person. And, yeah. Alright, well, I guess I'll see you guys later. I hope you like this. I hope I didn't upset you with too many of what I said, because I kind of went back and forth a little bit on, hey, come on, she consented, hey, but, you know, Steven Tyler did do wrong. I don't know. I need to know more about this case to see. But like I said, I think she has grounds to stand on maybe exposing her in the tabloids. And statutory rape. Because he knew that 16 was illegal. And he got guardianship to bypass that. And, that was very, very wrong, because that gave him another power over her. Because once he became the guardian, like, if something were to happen to her and the cops found her or something, they'd turn her back over to Steven Tyler, and because that's her guardian. So, He knew. He knew what he was doing. And maybe because it was 40 years later, he printed the book because he didn't. He's like, whatever. Like, she's not gonna remember that from 40 years ago, or I don't know. We don't know what Stephen was thinking when he put her in the book. She's saying he intentionally did it to hurt her. I think he's just doing a little bit of bragging. I mean, he put everything in the book, okay? His first time he had sex. He put that in the book. I mean, a group of friends. Yeah, he put that in the book. It's crazy. I mean, he's just so open and so honest. He just put everything in the books. And I don't know how the tabloids got a hold of her story and her pictures. Was Stephen part of that, or does she need to sue the tabloids separately? Alright, well, we'll see you guys later. I'm getting kind of tired. My fever's rising a little bit. I'll try and I thought this would be something nice and calm to sit and just talk about. But I'll when I'm feeling good, I'll be on. So look for me when I'm feeling good. Alright, love you guys so much. You don't know how much. You guys are amazing. Come in the chats more and everything. I miss you guys, baby, and well, I don't know if that one guy that was in the chat was a troll or not.